Please accept my obeisances. Namo Siddheshvar Paramamsa Namine Gaura Karuna Swarupaya Radha Krishna Prastayate. Namaste Saraswati Deva Gauravani Pacharine Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Paschatya De Satarine Vanchakalpa Triyavascha Kripasanubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanevyo Vaishnavevyo Namo Namaha. Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sadi Gaur Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Haribol, sir, can
Yes.
you adjust the volume?
Adjust it which way?
Louder.
How did I know that? How's that? Is that better?
Yes.
Is that okay? Oh, I've got hearts coming out from, okay, all right, good, thumbs up. Okay, it's time to turn on your cameras, Alan, Sharni, Nitya, if you can. There you are, Alan. Haribol, namaste. Thank you, Sharni. Haribol. Ah, Ivana. Namaste, Haribol. Pinky, good to see you. May, thank you. Haribol. Katrino, always nice to see you. Thank you very much for joining us. Haribol. Okay, in preparing for today's talk, I realized that the last chapters, hang on a second, oh, there it is. Yeah. I realized that the last 4 chapters of the Chaitanya Charitamrita are really quite short, especially in terms of activities, because they're mostly made up of the prayers of the gopis. And so I think what we'll do is we'll go all the way through chapter 20. We'll go all the way from chapter 17 till the end today. Okay? And then the next time I see you, we'll be talking about Govardhan Hill. Okay? Haribol. Namaste. So, chapter 17 of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, just in case you are not familiar with the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is the gold standard of many different biographies of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It was written by KRISHNA'S Kaviraj, and it was written under the supervision of the 6 Goswamis. And it's really quite, it is, like I said, it's the gold standard. There are many. Swarup Damodar wrote a very nice biography of Lord Chaitanya. Many devotees have written nice biographies of Lord Chaitanya. KRISHNA'S Kaviraj concentrated on certain aspects of Lord Chaitanya's life that were not so much written about by other devotees. So, therefore, the Chaitanya Charitamrita is unique in that sense. Chapter 17 is the sound of the flute. When Sri Chaitanya was in his Gambira, his hut, he heard the sound of Krishna's flute. And although all the doors in his Gambira were locked and Govinda was guarding the room on the outside, Lord Chaitanya mystically managed to escape without opening any of the doors or anything like that. He just wasn't there. Realizing what had happened, the devotees frantically began to search for him. And eventually they found him lying unconscious in a state of ecstatic love. He crossed over 3 walls, and he had fallen down among some cows that belonged in the district of Tailanga. There he remained unconscious, assuming the aspect of a tortoise. Now, how does one assume the aspect of a tortoise? What do you think? He actually moved his limbs. He was in such a state of ecstatic love that his limbs moved inside of his body, his torso, like a tortoise's. Okay? He brought all his limbs inside his torso so that all you could see was his head and his chest and his tummy. The rest of it, you couldn't even see it. It was just like practically not there for all intents and purposes. Now, he also did the opposite sometimes. This particular ecstatic situation where he actually assumed like the aspect of a tortoise, sometimes when he was chanting in the streets during kirtan, he would jump up and all of his joints would become disjointed. They'd like disjoint from each other. His shoulders and his elbows, his hands, his legs, his spine, everything. And instead of being the 7 foot, 2 or 3 inch tall Lord Chaitanya, he became like the 9 foot Lord Chaitanya, because his limbs were all, stretched out. And of course he couldn't dance or walk that way, so he would just collapse onto the ground, and the devotees would have to put him back together. But anyway, he remained unconscious there in the cow field, assuming the aspect of a tortoise. In great ecstasy, Lord Chaitanya said to Swarup Damodar in a faltering voice, "My ears are dying of thirst. My ears are dying of thirst." Isn't that cool? Isn't that amazing? My ears are dying of thirst. Please, please recite something to quench my thirst. Let me hear something wonderful. Understanding the ecstatic emotions of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Swarup Damodar, in a very sweet voice, recited these verses from Srimad Bhagavatam. My dear Lord Krishna, where is the woman that exists within all the 3 worlds who cannot be captivated by the rhythm and the sweet songs coming from your wonderful flute? Who cannot fall down from the path of chastity in this way? Your beauty is the most sublime within the 3 worlds. Upon seeing your beauty, even cows, even birds, animals, and even the trees in the forest are stunned in jubilation. Although the nectar of Krishna's lips is the absolute property of the gopis, the flute, which is just an insignificant stick, is forcibly drinking that nectar of Krishna's lips and loudly inviting the gopis to come and drink it as well. Just imagine the strength of the flute's austerities, the flute's good fortune. Even great devotees drink the nectar of Krishna's lips after the flute has done so. The trees on the bank of the Jamuna and Ganges are always jubilant. They appear to be smiling with their flowers, and they are shedding tears in the form of flowing honey, just as the forefathers of a Vaishnava son or grandson feel transcendental bliss. These trees feel so blissful because the flute is a member of their family. That's my flute over there. That's right. That came from my family. The gopis considered the flute is completely unfit for such a position. We want to know what sort of austerities the flute has executed so that we may also perform these same austerities. Although the flute is unfit, nevertheless he is drinking the nectar of Krishna's lips. Seeing this, we qualified gopis are dying. We are dying of unhappiness because the flute is not qualified. Or how is he qualified? Therefore, we must consider the austerities that the flute must have undergone in some past life. The transcendental vibration of Krishna's flute disturbs the hearts of women all over the world. And these women become the unpaid maidservants of Krishna. Indeed, they run towards Krishna exactly like mad women. When she hears the vibration of Krishna's flute, even the goddess of fortune runs to Krishna, greatly hoping for his association. But she does not get it. When the waves of thirst for his association increase, then she begins to perform austerities, but still she cannot meet him. And then the Lord spoke in the mood of Radharani. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "Alas! Alas! Alas, what shall I do? To whom shall I speak? Let whatever I've done in hopes of meeting Krishna be finished now. Please, please, say something auspicious, but do not speak about Krishna, please, okay? Do not speak about Krishna. Alas, Krishna is lying within my heart like Cupid. How can I possibly give up talking about him? I cannot forget Krishna. Krishna's smile is sweeter than sweetness itself. And he gives pleasure to my mind. He gives pleasure to my eyes. Alas, my great thirst for Krishna is increasing moment by moment. Ecstatic love for Krishna is wonderfully deep. By personally tasting the glorious sweetness of that love, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu showed us its extreme, limitless limit. Krishnadas Kaviraj says, worship the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in all aspects. Only in this way can you achieve the nectarian treasure of ecstatic love for Krishna. Only in this way, by worshiping Lord Chaitanya in all aspects, can you achieve the nectarian treasure of ecstatic love for Krishna. And thus he says, I have described Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's ecstatic transformation of becoming like a tortoise. In that ecstasy, he talked and he acted like a madman. After bringing the Lord back to consciousness, the devotees recited a series of verses glorifying the enchanting sound of Krishna's flute. Interestingly enough, his escaping from his hut, the Gambira, became a repeated event until finally they actually got somebody to go inside the hut with him when he took rest to try to keep him there. That's another story. And so we move on to chapter 18. On an autumn evening, when the moon was full, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu walked along the seashore near the Aitota temple. While he was walking along the sea, he looked at the ocean and saw the Yamuna River. And he jumped into it, hoping to experience the many water pastimes of Krishna and Srimati Radharani and the other gopis. As he floated on the ocean water, however, he was washed away, all the way miles down to the Konarka temple, where there was a fisherman. And he saw this is at night, he saw the Lord's body floating in the water. He thought it was a big fish. And so he caught him in his net, and he brought him ashore. Well, Lord Chaitanya was unconscious, but his body had become unusually transformed. And as soon as the fisherman touched the Lord's body, the fisherman became mad with ecstatic love for Krishna. His own madness frightened him because he thought he was being haunted by a ghost. He was about to find some kind of a ghost charmer to get rid of this madness. And that's where he met Swarup Damodar Goswami and the other devotees who were on the beach looking everywhere for the Lord. After some inquiries, Swarup Damodar could understand that the fisherman had caught Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his net. And he could understand that this madness was the transcendental effect of simply touching Lord Chaitanya's body. Since the fisherman was practically insane, totally afraid of being haunted by this ghost, Swarup Damodar gave him a slap. And he chanted, Hare Krishna, which immediately pacified the guy. Then, after they went to Lord Chaitanya's unconscious body, the devotees all chanted the Hare Krishna mantra loudly. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu finally came to his external consciousness. After chanting so loudly, Lord Chaitanya suddenly returned to consciousness and enthusiastically narrated so many water pastimes of Krishna. Then they brought him back to his own residence. Now, if you want to know about these wonderful water pastimes of Krishna that Lord Chaitanya spoke of when he returned to consciousness, you have to read the Chaitanya Charitamrita. We're only summarizing here. Chapter 19, the inconceivable behavior of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This is the good stuff. Every year, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked Jadadananda Pandit to visit his mother in Navadvip, giving him gifts of cloth and prasad to take. After one such visit, Jagadananda Pandit returned to Puri with a sonnet, a poem that Advaita Acharya had written. This poem described how everyone in Bengal was going mad, completely nuts, insane, due to their separation from Lord Chaitanya. The profound words of the Acharya doubled the Lord's feelings of ecstasy as he remembered the scene of Sri Krishna's departure to Mathura, which threw the gopis into pangs of separation. In that emotional remembrance, Sri Chaitanya rubbed his face. He rubbed his face against the walls of his hut until it was bleeding. His ecstasy was so great that all the devotees feared that the Lord would very soon leave his body, pass away. The Lord's condition was so serious that at night he would bruise his body and bloody his face by rubbing and hitting it against the walls. Wow. To stop this, Swarup Damodar asked Shankara Pandit to stay the night in the same room with the Lord. Now this chapter further describes how Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu entered the Jagannath Ballabha garden during the full moon night of Vishaka, or April and May. And he experienced various transcendental ecstasies, became overwhelmed with ecstatic love at suddenly seeing Lord Krishna beneath an ashok tree. He exhibited various symptoms of spiritual madness. I'll expand on that. This is from chapter 19. One night when Lord Chaitanya entered the Jagannath Balaba Gardens, he saw Krishna sitting underneath an ashok tree. Immediately he ran towards him, but Krishna simply smiled and disappeared. And when Lord Chaitanya arrived at the tree, he inhaled the transcendental aroma of Krishna, and he fell unconscious. And then, actually unconscious, he wandered around like a bumblebee. Although these esoteric pastimes are unfathomable to people who are just beginning in their spiritual life, nevertheless, they highlight a practical aspiration that each of us can strive for. That's the point. The quintessential spiritual vision of Lord Chaitanya is highlighted by Sri Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, where he says, "For one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, I am never lost, nor is he ever lost to me." Now, of course, ignorant people sometimes complain that they cannot see God at work, that he is not manifest in person before their eyes, and that they have no direct experience of even his existence. "Show me God," they say, "then I will believe in him." The entire process of bhakti, however, is meant to purify our consciousness and to bring us face to face with Krishna, with God. Over time, one can learn to see Krishna everywhere. Now, a devotee took the word time and spread it out a little bit, taking the T for time, temple. Some people doubt that God can appear in a material form, something made out of marble or metal or wood. To these people, it appears that they're limiting God, that it's imaginary and childish, it's idol worship, that they're treating God like a doll by bathing him and dressing him and feeding him. The deities, however, are not simply representations or icons, but they are actual manifestations of the divine personality of Godhead. Anyone who enters such transcendental exchanges with devotion and with sincerity can personally experience a deep and direct reciprocation. Further on the idea of time, T-I, I, the individual, the advanced Vaishnavas, by virtue of their knowledge and devotion, they see Krishna seated within every living entity, everywhere they look. They treat all beings with utmost respect and practically perceive how the supersoul within different individuals can offer guidance, can offer inspiration and instruction. T-I-M, time, T-I-M, M, material nature. A devotee sees Krishna as the source of creation, and he is also within the creation. The extreme intricacy and sophistication of the cosmos reminds a devotee of the higher intelligence behind it. Just as pearls are strung upon an indiscernible thread, God similarly designs, creates, and sustains the entire universe. And yet, He remains invisible to the immature. Krishna is also perceivable within the creation. For example, the taste of water, the light of the sun, the ability in man. These are all examples of His pervading opulence. And therefore, one can think about, when you're tasting water, you can think about, this is Krishna. When you see the sun, this is Krishna. And you can see Krishna within every aspect of the material world. TIME, events. Not a single blade of grass moves without the sanction of God. A mature, realized devotee can thus see Krishna's hand behind everything. That hand impregnating each event with purpose and His own meaning. Rather than becoming sentimentally ecstatic or allowing himself to become depressed and down, a devotee simply gracefully embraces every situation as being part of the Lord's master plan for his spiritual development. Krishna is my friend. My Guru is my friend. Whatever happens, it is your mercy. You may slay me or you may save me. You may feed me or you may make me starve. Whatever you want. But I am still devoted to you. You are my Lord. I don't care. You are my Lord. That is a devotee's consciousness. One day, in the intimate company of Ramananda Roy and Swarup Damodar, Lord Chaitanya recited a series of prayers and began to expound upon their meaning. These original compositions we now call Shishastakam, the 8 prayers of instructions. These are the actual verses that we recite before we do this class. Although Lord Chaitanya had defeated the greatest of scholars, as Nimai Pandit, although he educated the Goswamis and philosophically convinced even those who were adverse to Krishna, the Mayavadis, he did not personally author any literature. Instead, he simply left these 8 succinct verses, which comprehensively encapsulate the mood, the mission, and the practices, and the real theology of Gaudiya Vaishnavism. These 8 prayers encapsulates bhakti. They are amazing. The spiritual significance of these historic stanzas has been described by Bhakti Tirtha Swami. We should recognize this valuable key that can open sacred doors to the spiritual world. As we recite these slokas daily, we should constantly endeavor to enter more deeply into their meaning and into their mystery. This Shishastak states the conclusion of Krishna consciousness, and it offers the culmination of all the Vedas. It offers the culmination, the summum bonum of all the Vedas. Therefore, It is the necklace that all Vaishnavas should wear. A necklace worn around the neck, practically speaking, touches the heart. These verses are essential. They are essential for us, and they should be kept close to our hearts. They should not be viewed as optional or as an extracurricular aspect of our spiritual life. What a cool idea. I know many devotees make jewelry, right? So if you're making jewelry, make a little locket with the Shikshashtaka prayers in it. I'm sure people will buy. Sell that, put it on a necklace, and you've got the Shikshashtaka right next to your heart. Cool, yeah? And so, after spending 12 years in this kind of ecstatic reflection, Lord Chaitanya finally left the world. KRISHNA'S Kaviraj humbly submits that his narrations are like a drop from the unlimited ocean of nectar. He credits his writing to Krishna and his various representatives who graciously showered him with blessings and empowerment. KRISHNA'S Kaviraj concludes his magnum opus by summarizing the entire ANTYA LILA. He goes through it chapter by chapter, giving a summary of what's in each chapter. KRISHNA'S begins the Chaitanya Charitamrita with an invocation, philosophically preparing the reader to hear the sweet pastimes of Lord Chaitanya. The next chapters describe the incarnation and the education of Nimai, who became known as the greatest scholar of India. His true purpose, however, was to spread the movement of Nama Sankirtan, and this only manifested after a pronounced transformation, initially by his mantra initiation, and later through his initiation into sannyas. Now known as Sri Chaitanya, he settled into his life of renunciation, making Jagannath Puri his headquarters. And from here, he journeyed all over India in mass propagation of the Sankirtan mission. As the years went by, his desire to visit Vrindavan kept growing stronger and stronger, until finally he fulfilled that long-cherished aspiration. Upon his return to Jagannath Puri, Lord Chaitanya strategically met Rupa and Sanatan Goswamis, carefully instructing them on the organization of the Sankirtan mission. Retiring to Jagannath Puri for the final years of his life, Sri Chaitanya resided with his devotees, offering appreciation and correction to practically establish the culture of Vaishnavism. After extensively doing that for 6 years, the Lord retreated to the house of Kashi Mishra and absorbed himself in spiritual intoxication in the mood of Srimati Radharani. In these final days, Sri Chaitanya offered the 8 stanzas of instruction to carefully guide the future generations in the wonderful, beautiful process of bhakti. So that my desires might be fulfilled, I place the lotus feet of these personalities upon my head. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, with Lord Nityananda, Advaitacharya, and their devotees, as well as Swarup Damodar Goswami, Srila Rupa Goswami, Sri Sanatan Goswami, Sri Raghunath Das Goswami, who is my spiritual master, and Srila Jiva Goswami. I now worship the lotus feet of all those who read this, for by the mercy of their lotus feet, there is all good fortune. If one hears the pastimes of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, I wash his lotus feet, and I drink the water. If one hears the pastimes, of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I wash their lotus feet and drink the water. I decorate my head with the dust of the lotus feet of my audience, because now you have all drunk this nectar, and therefore my labor is successful. Praying at the lotus feet of Sri Rupa and Sri Raghunath, always desiring their mercy. I, Krishnadas, narrate the Chaitanya Charitamrita, following in their footsteps. The Chaitanya Charitamrita is filled with the activities of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. It invokes all good fortune and destroys everything inauspicious. If one tastes the nectar of Chaitanya Charitamrita with faith and with love, then I become like a bumblebee tasting the honey of transcendental love from his lotus feet. So speaks and so prays Krishnadas Kaviraj. Haribol, Haribol, Haribol. And thus ends the summary of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. I have a question, so before I ask you for a question, I got a question from someone during the week that I told him I would answer. This comes from Davy Burr. He says, sometimes I have specific feelings towards Krishna when I'm chanting. How do I know if these are genuine or simply some sentiment from my mind? I think a lot of people have this question, you know. They may have some feelings or some thoughts about Krishna, especially when they're chanting or during kirtan, and they may wonder, well, is this just some illusion, just some, you know, mental gyration of my mind, or is this for real? And the fact is that it really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. However you can focus your mind on Krishna, that's the whole point. So if in the beginning it's just some, you know, thing, just some mental thing going on, that's okay, because it will grow. You know? The idea being to focus your mind on Krishna. And if your mind wants to cooperate, hey, all the better. You know? So, if your mind wants to go there, don't stop it. Don't say, hey, you're just fooling me. You're just being, you know, the mind. Stop it. No. Let it go. Let it go. Let it go towards Krishna. Think about Krishna. Think about Krishna's pastimes. Think about Krishna's words. Think about Krishna's lotus feet. Think about him in Vrindavan. Think about him playing his flute. Anything that you can focus your mind upon, no matter how ephemeral it may seem, is pure and purifying. So, thank you, Davy, for that question. Does anyone else have a question? Last chance. This whole thing on the Chaitanya Charitamrita is just about over. 10, 9, 8. Ah, yes, Katrino. Turn on your microphone.
My question is, why is it is not palatable for devotees to talk about the disappearance of Lord Chaitanya?
I'm sorry, try that again. Is it okay to talk about it?
Why it is not always talked about? Why it's not like palatable?
Well, a devotee doesn't want to talk about the disappearance of Krishna. We don't even talk about the disappearance of Lord Krishna. You know, it's all written about in the Mahabharata, what happened and everything. You know, the hunter shooting him in the foot with an arrow, and turned out that the arrow was made from a piece of iron that had been cursed by Jarasandha or somebody to kill all the Yadu dynasty. And but Krishna thanked the hunter. He said, I was wondering how I was going to get out of here. You know, so he thanked the hunter and said, okay, that's fine. But, you know, devotees don't want to talk about that. They want to talk about Krishna and his pastimes. And, you know, same is true of Lord Chaitanya. We talk about his transcendental manifestations, becoming like a tortoise and escaping from his hut without anybody knowing how, climbing over huge walls and ending up unconscious in a cow field. I mean, you know, this is the, I mean, gosh. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, especially in these last 3 chapters, there are just some amazing quotes from the Bhagavatam, from 10th canto, and you know, Radharani's prayers, you know, yelling at the bumblebee, telling him how what a terrible servant he is of an even more terrible master, and all these wonderful things that are in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. If you get a chance, just it'll bring tears. It'll bring tears to your eyes. And wouldn't you much rather have tears in your eyes from the ecstasy of Radharani and the ecstasy of Lord Chaitanya than thinking about how he disappeared or whatever? So this is the attitude of devotees. Devotees don't care much for, you know, oh, well, you know, he, you know, blah, 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 blah. What I heard was that he just, you know, they went into his hut and he just wasn't there anymore. And that was it. You know, I don't know. I've never examined it, nor do I have any desire to examine it. So, you know, think about Lord Chaitanya's teachings. Think about Lord Chaitanya's life. Think about Lord Chaitanya's prayers. Think about, you know, the wonderful, the ecstasy that he manifests to all the devotees, and the wonderful, amazing stories from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and the Nectar of Devotion, and all the different wonderful books of the 6 Goswamis. It's just, it's amazing. There's a lot more for you to think about, Katrina, than worrying about who passed and how they passed and yada yada yada. Any other question?
Thank you, sir.
Haribol. Thank you. Namaste. I'm going to start my countdown again. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, that's it. Back to Narayan Dasi. Haribol, Haribol.
Haribol, namaste, Sir Siddheshvar. Thank you so much.
Next time we see you, we'll be celebrating Govardhan Puj. That will be, I'm looking at my calendar, that will be on Saturday the 14th, I believe. We'll be discussing the pastimes of Govardhan and the significance of Govardhan. Okay? Haribol.
Haribol, namaste. Thank you so much.